to today's session, Home Education in Europe, a case study with N families from A, B, and C. So let's look what Europe have to show about the practice of home education here in different countries. My name is Sílvia Cópio. I will be the moderator of this session, and well, I will present myself a little bit later. GAGX is grateful to our sponsors, board members, and staff who have made this online global conference possible. Please visit our website and the conference website to learn more about GAGX. As we come together online instead of as originally planned in the Philippines because of the pandemic, our conference theme, Home Education, a Global Movement, a Global Solution, shows that in spite of this challenge, let me just unmute Peter. In spite of this challenge, the global homeschooling community is reaching out to help improve educational opportunities for all children. GAGX has a mission to support homeschooling everywhere for everyone as a fundamental right, regardless of why or how they choose to do it. We believe that every family, parents, and children should be respected and protected to enjoy the benefits of homeschooling. GAGX has been working to connect, encourage, equip, and influence organization leaders, policymakers, and researchers who have had an interest in home education for 10 years. This is our fourth global conference. You can learn more about GAGX in the site. I'm excited about the discussion of today, titled Home Education in Europe, a case study with N families from A, B, and C. Each speaker will have about 7 minutes, and after all we have made their remarks, we'll open up our discussion for a Q&A question. So let me advise the attendees that everyone can put their questions in the Q&A box, okay? And left the chat for some sharings, comments, and things like that. And we will try to answer for all the questions that will be made here. Even though we could not have time for all the questions, we'll try to answer later, and you will see it on the record, okay? So let's begin, okay? I begin to say one or two things about myself, but I only need to present myself as a homeschool mother that has 3 young boys. I live in Portugal. I am also the leader of a Portuguese association, non-profit association called Movement for Freedom in Education, and I'm also a board member from the Global Home Education Exchange. I'm very honored to be here. I'm very honored to be with this lovely panel of some lovely people that have so wonderful things to say about homeschoolers in different countries. I have this dream of more connection between us in Europe. So these sessions in Europe have this goal of putting us more together. So I hope that we can all learn through each other. And so let's begin, let's start. And so I will start by presenting you Rose, okay? Rose from Germany, okay? Rose has a degree in Steiner education and taught at the Waldorf School for several years. She followed the unschooling approach to education with her 3 children, now independent young adults. She has held the position of German program director for Kronlehrer Schools off-campus program since 2013-14 school year. She founded the Creative Children Project I don't know if I can say that, Rose, and everybody, please forgive me for my not ability for some words in other languages. And he was aware the French Trophée National de l'Entrepreneuriat au Féminin. For her work in this project in 2015, since 2016, she has been studying part-time at Alanus University of Arts and Social Sciences in After, Germany, in their educational research program. Her research is into self-directed learning and the recognition of informal education, leader to start the Keiki project in 2019. So Rose, welcome here, and you can start to talk in this moment. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sílvia. Yeah, so I would like to present a research project that I did with a group of fellow students from the educational research program of Alanus University of Arts and Social Science in Germany. And we were interested in the factors that lead to a successful career choice of young adults. And the results of our little study were published this year in ROSE, that is an international peer-reviewed journal for research on Steiner education. So let's see my presentation. I try to share my screen with you. So here we see our research question. How do the factors of practical experience, home environment, peer group, school, and media affect young people's career choices? So we had a sample. These were, we did a survey on adolescents and young adults who were younger than 30 years old and who formerly attended public schools, private schools, or who were home educated. And the home educated young adults were mostly unschooled. So our research design was a quantitative part. Here we had a questionnaire with 54 items, and these items were statements that the young people could agree with or disagree with. And I'm going to show you some examples later. But we also had a qualitative part. And here we conducted interviews with the young adults, but also with experts, and that was in the area of career choice and transition. So these are people who help young people with the transition from school to professional life. So the results that we found were very surprising for us because only the factors practical experiences and home environment play a significant role in a successful career choice. And by practical experience, we found that it meant opportunity to experience hand-on activities or real professional life experiences, so work experience, for example. And by home environment, it was mostly the support within the family that the young adults talked about. It was not only the parents, but it was really the extended family. So, for example, the grandparents were mentioned as well. So we can say that the relation was really important here. And the factors peer group, media, or even school play only a very, very minor role in the successful career choice. I have to say that the survey is not representative because we had a small sample of around 100 completed questionnaires. But I can say that it is still significant because the quantitative and the qualitative part of the research showed the same results, but also because of the fact that we found pretty much the same results in all of the three groups. So it didn't matter if the young adults were formerly in public schools or private schools, or if they were homeschooled, it was pretty much the same. The only difference that we found in the groups was that the home-educated young adults, they would use a little bit more social media channels to get informations about their career options. So the influence of the factor media that we see here was slightly more significant than it was the case for the other groups. And also for the home-educated young adults, we can say that they had more opportunity for extended work practice. So I would like to share some of the statements with you that we asked for. So of course it is translated here, and I can only show you 3 out of the 54 items that we had in the questionnaire. So it's translated, it reads, the information provided by the school about vocational training and university studies were helpful for my career choice. And you see that a strong majority of the young adults disagreed with that statement. You see 35.11% disagree, and even 37.23% strongly disagree with this statement. Let's have a look on another one. So here the statement was, my teachers made me aware of my particular strengths. And we have the same structure here. So a strong disagreement with that statement. We have 29.17% of the young people disagreed, and even 34.38% strongly disagree. And now have a look what happens when we ask about the parents. So here the statement is, my parents made me aware of my particular strengths. And we see that it totally turns around. We have a strong agreement now with this statement. We have 36.84% of the young people who strongly agreed with the statement, and still 29.47% who agreed. And I think that we can say that this little study that we conducted here on the impact of home environment can really show us that probably the influence that schools have is way lesser than we think. And of course, in this case, it was all about career choices. But I think we should look into other areas as well. And yeah. Thank you very much for your attention.
Oh, thank you, Rose. It is so important for us to see the results of studies like yours. And I am amazed about some results that you have just presented regarding to the difference between the importance, they were aware of the importance of the different roles. I just want to comment that it's important for, I believe it's important for us homeschoolers to don't separate different barricades between teachers and parents, but it's very important to identify the importance of the difference in the different roles. So I'm amazed, and I'm very grateful for your work and for your presentation here. So thank you very much, Rose. So we go along with Erika. Okay, hi Erika.
Hi.
Erika Di Martino is a mother of 5. Hello, Erika. Nice to meet you here. So he's a mother of 5 homeschooled children, ages 15, 13, 11, 8, and 4, who has been involved in education and homeschooling in Europe for over 10 years. She is the founder of the Italian Home Education Network, and she is a writer and a family and educational coach. Erika has collaborated with numerous Italian and international newspapers and has participated in various television programs and events, explaining to millions of people how to homeschool. She and She and the family have been inspiring and supporting parents who are embracing this educational choice, sharing their challenges, their achievements, and their spiritual growth. So nice to meet you, Erika, and please let you know what you have to say.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much. Well, the situation in Italy, I'm really interested, by the way, of all other countries. It's not very ripe, let's say, let's put it this way. There aren't many studies, statistics. Actually, the Ministry of Education has no idea how many homeschoolers there are. And this is incredible, but it's the truth, because there's a lot of confusion. If any of you has ever visited Italy, it's a beautiful, comes to bureaucracy. Well, we are quite messy. And so the same documents and declarations that the homeschooling families have to fill in are those of, parent-directed charter schools and the same and the like. So it's very difficult here to have a concrete idea of how many families are homeschooling and where they are located. So I'm trying to give you the best idea that I have obtained in these 10 years. My kids, I was listening to the ages. I think it was a little bit, when they were younger. Now, actually, they're 16, 14, 12, 11, 8, and 5. And we've been homeschooling here in Italy, as I said, for the last 10 years. I started just with a simple blog, like, many others. And then it picked up interest. And I just felt it was my mission to tell people, how wonderful it was. And I got this enthusiastic response from many, many families. As some of you already know, then home education here is legal. And I believe we are very, very lucky, because it's clearly stated in our Constitution, Articles 30 and 34, that the parents are those responsible to provide an education for their children, while the choice of state schooling instead remains a way to delegate this right and duty. I think how they chose the words, the fact that they're talking about schooling and education separately, that is so important. When I look up other constitutions and see how the wording maybe does not help the freedom that we have, that we can practice here. Furthermore, the Constitution states that the education till the age of 16 here is mandatory, so not the schooling. There have been some reforms regarding the ages. So now there is this, you must be in school or homeschool till the age of 16. They have added another 3 years till age 18 of either compulsory education or some sort of apprenticeship that has to be formal. The bureaucracy to start homeschooling here in Italy is quite simple. Even though it is very simple, many families still think it is illegal. This is where we are now. This is, it's not strange that you will say, my child is homeschooled, and somebody will come up to you and think that they will carry you to jail. It's actually like that. It's true. It's true. Even though things have changed, I must admit. Now, in the last 6 months with the pandemic, people are becoming more and more aware that there are other forms of education, that there's another possibility. So in any case, it's very simple. We have to send a simple declaration, a letter to our school officials. There is no request, no authority obtained. It's a simple declaration. In addition, sometimes we are requested to declare that we have the technical or economic capacity to teach our children at home. What does this mean? It means technical capacity. It regards the academical titles. It means that the parents or family members, friends that surround the student can provide a rich and diverse academical background. This isn't always requested. So this is another good point, for being in Italy, because it's quite simple to obtain and organize oneself when you interface the institution. So it's requested, this technical capacity, it's requested only if the school principal, the school official has some doubts, then he will or she will request further investigation. Recently, we have witnessed an increase in these inquiries, but I think it's also because there has been a great increase in the declaration in the homeschooling families on the people that have decided to homeschool. Economic capacity simply refers instead to the financial means, yet this statement is hardly ever investigated as it invades personal privacy. So technically the institution cannot come and ask you for, your revenue papers or whatever. So most homeschooling families self-substantiate that they meet this criteria. Neither of these statements must be justified by legal papers. They hardly ever, as I said, demand tax declarations or school diplomas or all this. There is no real guideline, no real specification, which I think, again, is one of those positive, messy aspects of Italy. This process has been followed unchanged for up to 3 years, up until 3 years ago now. The families would be requested to send in their papers every year. There was no examination up until 3 years ago. You would undergo with your kid an examination only if the parents wanted to legitimate their or if the child wanted to return into the school system. Yet on May 16th, 2017, there was a school reform called La Buona Scuola, where the Italian parliament approved the fact that there's going to be a yearly examination. So it kind of made things a little bit more difficult for those that perhaps were unschooling or had more diverse choices in what they were doing with their children. It got a little more difficult now. We have to bring our children to pass these yearly examination, even though they didn't state, and here we go again, they didn't state what was going to happen if the child did not pass. So actually nothing really happens, even though the child doesn't pass this exam, yet we have to go and do it. So incongruencies of the system. So we have to produce now a personal curriculum in Italian. So if any of you are planning to come to Italy and homeschool in your native language, be careful, be aware, you must produce an Italian curriculum unless you find some way. Other than that, maybe some international school, that could be a possibility. So there has to be this personal curriculum and a written request for the exam. This paperwork all has to be presented to the school of one's choice. It can be a state school, or it can be what we call paritarie, which are more or less like charter schools. Usually homeschooling families prefer charter schools because there's a better dialogue with that kind of school. There's more, parent so it's easier to understand each other. School will then inform the family, on about the exam procedures, the dates. So we have a huge diversity. Some of my children have taken, some exams, they were very strict. Others, instead, an informal chat, a presentation of some work. So even here, every year as Edupar, the Italian network, we run a poll to understand what, how it's going and how the families are doing. I must admit, the first year that the exams were implemented, it was a little bit of a disaster because it was hard for the families to communicate with the schools in the right kind of way. It was the first time. Now we've been around there 3 years now, and things are going much better. Almost all the children pass their exams. There's so much better communication between the institutions and the families. I can say this, we needed a little bit of exercises and doing this. So before the COVID-19 emergency, as I said, Italian homeschoolers were often regarded as eccentric, as nonconformist, as individualist. But so much has changed since March. All these schools have moved online. Many are dissatisfied with what they're doing. Families are now understanding that education can be done in so many other ways. It doesn't have to be like the school shows us. And as a consequence, we are seen as a resource. We are often seen as a solution. There's been so many articles published as in, how can the homeschoolers help the school children, the school families, and we have been very, very active lately. To sum it up, because I think my time, I put a timer, but my As I'm Italian, I have to talk a lot, right? So I didn't gesturize that much, but definitely. So the time is running out. But what are the problems here in Italy? If I should, just give you a few outline these. First of all, there's a lot of confusion between doing some school, like democratic school, free school led by parents, and homeschooling. A lot of parents don't understand there's a difference. As I said, the papers are the same. The bureaucracy is the same. So many parents think they're homeschooling while instead their kids are enrolled in a free school. But that's how it is. There's a huge difference between what's happening from Rome up north and in the islands, and what's happening Rome to the south. As in the north, we see many more homeschoolers. They're more organized. There are groups. You can easily find, like any other place, co-ops and places where you can go with your children and get information and whatsoever. While in the south, it's more difficult. The families there are quite isolated. As an exception, though, Sicily and Sardinia are doing very well. They're very well organized, even though the infrastructure is lacking. So it's very hard for families to get together physically, but they're really creating the net and the connections between families. The country is beautiful, so it's very easy to learn. Being outdoors, history is everywhere. The cuisine is wonderful. So that I have to say, we have it on our side, definitely. As we were listening just earlier, Rose was telling us about the collaboration between parents and teachers and the school. We're working on that too. We're working on the fact that there's this diversity and we all have to collaborate. The message that has to pass is that we're all working hard for our future, for the young people. And it's not, someone is number one, someone is number two. No, we're all working on the same project and we're doing it from different sides. So collaboration is important. Thank you, Sílvia.
Oh, thank you, Erika. And you have just finished with the comment that I was thinking, saying that this cooperation is so important between schools and homeschool families, because even though we are doing different things, maybe communication between human beings is always a constructive way of improve education. So thank you for your presentation, Rose. It was very inspiring, and I missed going to Italy more, so I want to go more.
I can imagine. Let's hope it all ends, and you can come all over here next time. We can meet.
Okay,
here.
Let's do that. And don't forget that there are more Latin people here, so maybe we can talk more and do more gestures with our hands. But okay, I'm just joking. Okay, so let me present you now Peter. Okay, Peter. Peter, I'm afraid of saying your last name. Sorry for that, Peter. I don't want to be misunderstood about that, but I will present you.
You hear me?
Okay, thank you. Maybe you can
yes,
say
of course.
your. Okay. Okay, thank you, Peter. Peter is in 1994 have become a family man. His wife and him have 4 children, all of whom educated at home. Okay, Peter, I will not read your whole biography, okay? I will only say some of aspects, and people can research more things about you in our site, okay? So, but I want to say here for your presentation that ever since the year 2000, he has been a pastor in a Reformed Presbyterian church. To this day, he is preaching there every Sunday. All the families in his church educate children at home, and in 2004, the Bulgarian Home Education Association began its work in Bulgaria, and they have been its chairman since then. Every year, organize a national conference on home education, as well as annual seminars and individual meetups with homeschool families. So let me present you as a big supporter of homeschool families in Bulgaria, somehow, as I've seen from your biography. So Peter, let me let us know more about the situation in Bulgaria, and thank you for being here.
I thank you. Do you hear me well now? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Porumbachanov, and I'm the chairman of the Bulgarian Homeschool Association. But, you know, I would like to share a few important ideas concerning freedom and home education, okay? First, the freedom of education is not a centralized bureaucratically governed process. If I had waited until the government present me with the opportunity to educate my children at home, I would never have been able to do so. Educational freedom, as is in fact the case with any freedom, is not and can never be a top-down process. On the contrary, it begins from the bottom and makes its way to the top. The transform society, first you need to transform yourselves. This is a slow but sure way towards change. This is exactly what I and my co-workers are doing in Bulgaria. To personal example, we prove how our personal change affects the reality around us. Today, after 20 years of hard works in Bulgaria and among the Bulgarian families, I can confidently say that my countrymen, includes the Bulgarian authorities, have a positive relationship with the home educating community. This has been the result of our personal example and consistent hard work with our countrymen, even when we consider that the laws in our country do not favor freedom in education. Second, you cannot give something that you do not possess. Remember this, you cannot give something that you do not possess. Dear parents, our education has not finished. We are responsible for the education of our children, and if we want to do our job well, we have no choice but to continue with our own. In fact, man educates himself as long as he lives. This is the point of life itself, to learn constantly and consistently, to become better and more effective in our responsibilities. So parents, you have to find the strength to self-educate. The truth is that those who want to accomplish the goals they have set for their children will have to pay the price, and this includes necessary growth in knowledge and understanding. Good things are hard to accomplish. That is what makes them good. Home education is not a reorganization with less work as its goal. It aims to reorganize our own life with the goal to increase the responsibilities and workload of the parents. The families that educate the children at home have the discipline to study and to learn here in Bulgaria. I say it again, you cannot give something do you not possess. And last, third, be reformers, not revolutionaries. The difference between a reformer and revolutionary is this: reformers achieve reforms through their own efforts and capital, both intellectual and financial, while revolutionaries expend community resources for questionable purpose. You will not hear a reformer who bemoans the lack of governmental funding for his projects. Reformers always prefer to apply their ideas to their own lives and offer them to society after they have proven their effectiveness and practice. Revolutionaries, on the contrary, desire to enforce their ideas on the whole of society, regardless of their functionality and results. Families that home educate are reformers, not revolutionaries, because they work slowly according to a long-term plan for the future. Keep in mind that the work of the reformers is the one that stands the test of time and endures through the centuries. Will revolutionaries fail because usually after they steal a satisfactory amount of tax money, they lose interest in their goals. The work of revolutionaries is shafts blown by the winds of time. The work of reformers is precious and it can change the world. Be reformers, not revolutionaries. Thank you for your time, and continue to show to the people around you that you treasure freedom, and therefore you take the best possible care for your children and their education. And God bless you.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter, for your words. And I'm compelled to say that let's be reformers with the much amount of love and peace that we could give for all the world. And then we are educating not only our own kids, but in a matter through our own kids, we are capable to construct a really better world. So it was nice to hear you, Peter. Thank you a lot. So, and now I will present Inês Peceguina. Welcome, Inês. Let me say to you all that Inês is a mother of 3 young children, actively involved in thinking, reading, and writing about childhood and development, and observer and researcher, and a dancer in between. Inês has a PhD in development psychology and a postdoctoral research in psychology of education. She's specialized in socialization. And I'm glad to present you, Inês, as my colleague in the movement for freedom in education. We both work a lot in Portugal, helping other families, and for me it's a very special moment to have you here. It's the first time that we are together in the Global Home Education Exchange, so I'm very happy for you to having accept this presentation. So go along, Inês, and say what you have to say for all of us.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Sílvia. It is very nice to be here. I was planning to be way out in Philippines by this year because I was not able to go 2 years ago, but well, we're in here, we're okay, and that's what it matters. Before I start presenting what I had planned for this session, I just wanted to add something about Rose's presentation, about finding how the family is a variable that accounts very much into these choices for a meaningful career. From my prior research, I have also found that the family, especially the mother's education, it's one of the most strong variables in explaining development. Not the quality of the classroom, not the quality of the relationship between both children and the teachers, not the structural quality of the space, but the mother's education. So in my prior work, while doing the postdoctoral research, this was always a variable that we have to control, but we end up having it as the most strong path in explaining development. And this is, I think, quite relevant for whatever the options that we make for the children's education. Okay, the family still has a very important role. and it has to be, we have to be aware of that, okay, even when we decide that we want another path of education for the children. Erika, thank you for your presentation. I kind of felt very connected with many of the things that you say. Some things are really similar in here. I think from the cultural perspective, there are very many similarities. And we have been growing towards this situation of more control, like it has happened in Italy, but still a bit different. So let me also clarify that I am a researcher. I think that I am a researcher, like it is my identity. I am not now connected, I am not connected with the university like in a direct way. Now we are through the association, the Movement for Freedom in Education. We have some partnerships with the universities, but I am very interested in studying everything that we receive and everything that we can observe by being in this non-profit organization. So what I've bring in here today, it's really a very, how can I say this? Like, it's not a research look, having all the methods and the instruments and the analysis, okay? It's just a first look, because right now, because of this pandemic, but not just because of that, the needs that come from the families do not give us like almost no space to do anything else but to provide this support. And this is the first point that I'm going to speak about now, about the increasing interest regarding schooling and schooling choices. And this has been happening in Portugal maybe for the last 6 or 7 years. We have made a first documentation about this 2 years ago. And just like you said, Erika, the state doesn't know anything about what's going on in here, okay? They are not aware of how many children, they know how many children are registered in the school system, but this information is not out there easily. Last year, we had a student that was doing some work about it, and she had to pay to get this information. And right now, I know that it has increased a lot because of the pandemic situation, but we do not know the numbers yet, okay? But in the last 6 or 7 years, there has been an increase like from perhaps 100 families 7 years ago, and now there are more than 1,000 families, which is not a lot if you compare with the 1.3 millions that go into the school system being there presently, but it is a quite big exponential increase. This interest, and this you must know that this is my impression, okay? This is not a research that I have made. This has to do with my experience in responding to the families. The interest in the Portuguese context is manifested as the homeschooling. People want to homeschool, which is a legal option for many years, but also for many people, it keeps being something that is just for children that are about to die, or just for families that have a lot of money. So there are lots of myths regarding this, even regarding if it is a legal option. But when people want to do something about having a different path of education, they go for home education, okay? Legally, this has, as I said, it is getting more controlled as a path for doing something different in terms of education with the child. And it has been less and less a way of finding an alternative curricula. And that is because the children will have to follow the Portuguese curricula, like you were saying, they have to follow the Italian. It has to be in Portuguese language, and they have to do an enormous amount of testing, which in the Portuguese case, I don't think is that light as the way that you presented in here, in Italy. It seems to be for many families something that it is quite heavy, and it happens in a very short time window. So it's like, okay, we have the freedom to prepare, to let the children do their own projects and to grow as in a more individual and connected with the child's interests. But then for this, when the time is come for the test, you will have to prepare the child for that. And it's not an easy preparation, especially if you give the child the opportunity of having hands-on and being like leading her development, then how can you just convince the child that she has to do that? It's not just the question of knowledge, and it is not, okay, the kids are very smart, and it's exactly because of that that they will say, but how come I have to know this and to learn this and to do this in this time? Why do I have to do it in, I don't know, 90 minutes and not 2 hours? Well, okay, so many of the families, they are not just looking for an alternative learning approach or a method. They are also seeking for a more slow, close to nature, more meaningful way of living, okay? This is something that from my studies, I have been doing like literature review for the last 3 years in Europe. There is not much in Europe yet, but for instance, I know that in Israel, they have a few published studies, and it is, although I do not have this data on the Portuguese population, when I read these reports, they are published, I see a trend that it's very similar, okay? The families start by looking, okay, they want a more child-led education, and this starts to be like a schooling option. But then this affects the whole structure and organization of the family. And with time, this it converges to all of a lot of areas of living, like the way they arrange their meals, like where do they want to live, how much time they want to be in nature, the buying, the consumption, all of this ends up by being a way of living and not just a schooling option. And we see this trend. I do not have the data, as I told you, but we do have this trend. And then very recently, since March, we have this different scenario of anxiety-driven seeking of options of homeschooling, that it has to do with the situation of the pandemic. We have two different kind of trends. One, that it was families that for a long time they have been thinking about this, and now they were forced to be with the children, and they were like, I can do this, okay? They felt, this will work for me. I have the tools, I have the confidence to do this. So the year started, and they started doing homeschool. Mostly these were children that were in the first cycle of education. And then you have the other families that are really worried about health issues, and they are not happy about the way the school is organized, and they want to do this just as a plan B. And possibly they will hire teachers to be with a child along this situation, but it's not a choice of home education per se, okay? So regarding this, and I have decided in this short time that we had, because we have many projects going on, but everything is going on and not yet in here to present. So I have decided to look at the answers that our members of this organization have provided when they fill up a questionnaire to become associates of the organization. There's a question that asks them, what is freedom of education? You know, and this has been there since the beginning of this association. And I have to say that I never looked at that. And mostly because this is an open question, and I know how these days people are not, you know, having the time to just provide an answer. But then I said, okay, let me just take a look at this and see what's in here. And I have to tell you that from out of 632 questionnaires that were filled up, there were 460 answers. And I was like very amazed, because it was really a surprise for me. This is an open question. People give lots of details regarding their own situation. So this makes the analysis much more difficult, but okay, I said, okay, let me just do, I like randomly read about 100 of these answers. And then I just used the very simple algorithm of word counts to see what were the words that were most said by these persons. I'm going to share my screen now just to show you this. It's very fast, I will hope. Okay, this is it. Just a second. Okay. Okay, this is what I have seen. I have to put this down. I cannot see the words. So the first, it was child. I cannot see the numbers in my screen because I just put a tag over there. But the word that most appears is child. and then it's learn, and then it's the children, it's not the child, it's the son or the daughter, and then you have respect, and then being or to be. And then the next 5 words that most appear, wait a second. I just stop, where is my, I cannot find my mouse. Okay, the next 5 choices, five words were choice, rhythm, living, teach, and time. So you can tell that having 460 answers, there were a lot of words in there, okay? But this is, I think, a bit of a very superficial picture of what is driven people towards these choices. And this is one of the studies that we are that is going on. And just before finishing this presentation, I cannot stop this sharing. A second. Oh, sorry, I cannot find, where is my, okay, it's in here. Okay, you're not seeing my screen anymore, right? Okay, so just before finish, we have now we have data that we collected last year about the parents being a social context. And this is because there are questions regarding the socialization of the children, for which there are now some data, okay, not yet clarified, but there are data. And I was also interested to know, to characterize the parents as a context for socializing the children. So this is one of the questionnaires that is being analyzed now. And then we have a partnership with the university that is a PhD program, and I'm one of the supervisors. And this student, she's assessing how is it that children are exposed to screen time, and she wants very much to have a sample of children that have been home educated. And this is a comparison study between Portuguese sample and Lithuanian sample. And we already have a few data. We don't have enough data from children that were already in the home context. So this will not allow us yet to do some comparisons like in statistical manners, but we did find a few differences between the countries already. And one of the differences was that Portuguese parents tend to put their children, this is children between the ages of 1 and 6. But we have children that go to the school system from the age of 3 till 6 in Portugal are up to 90%, okay, much more than that. So most children will be in the school system at that early age. And we found that the Portuguese parents, they use the screen for the children when they need to do domestic tasks in the house, whereas the Lithuanian parents will do it for personal tasks. If they want to see a movie or do something for them, they will give the child a screen. And this is a very interesting difference that we have not analyzed yet. And that's it. Okay, I just wanted to share what is going on in here, and we have a lot to explore and to understand. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Inês. Thank you for your enthusiasm. I'm always amazed by the input that you put in your research. Is so nice, and thank you for bringing the question about freedom that is so important for us to be aware of the conceptions that different people could have about what is freedom and what is freedom in education. So thank you a lot for your presentation. But we have to go along, and I want to encourage more people to put questions in the Q&A box. We have already one question that we'll try to answer later, but please feel free to put more questions to our panelists today, because we will answer more questions later. Okay, so let me present you now Agnes. Okay, Agnes is she is a writer, a speaker, and an activist for attachment parenting, unschooling, and social change through egalitarian relationships. Author of the books Livre para Crescer, Free to Grow Up, and A Casa, The House. The video Danos Ex-Colaterais, I cannot translate that, so Agnes, please be free to translate when you begin to speak. Okay, and several contributions on TV and radio shows, as well as social educational events. She is a mother of 3, and she represents a very important way of living through unschool. And as Inês said, the way of living of Agnes could be inspiring someone that is listening. So Agnes, welcome to this session, and please speak a little.
Can you hear me? Yes. I believe in the power of human connection. I believe in the power of strong human relationships and emotional intimacy. I believe in the urgent need to cultivate empathy, intimacy, and strong bonds between people and the world around us. I believe that people are wired for connection and that a fulfilling life is based on deep, psychologically intense relationships. I believe in love. I'm Agnes Sedlmayr. I'm a social activist living with my partner and 3 kids on an off-grid farm in central Portugal. I have to read because I didn't have the time to prepare something to speak by heart. Welcome you all. I'm very happy to join you on this important event. In the introduction, I said I believe in love. I don't mean this sugar-coated word so common, it's so empty nowadays. What I mean with love is not a romantic, sweet, and abstract concept, but action. The willingness to create and keep psychologically intimate relationships that rely on empathy, honesty, and mutual efforts of understanding and support. The foundation for the capacity to form and maintain healthy relationships lays in the experiences of early childhood. The base for our trust in the world, our emotional development, and our mental health is a secure attachment to a primary caregiver, usually the mother and/or the father. In the early years, a secure attachment is developed through the willingness and openness of the primary caregiver to respond in a sensitive way to baby's cues and therefore to fulfill the baby's needs. Tools for this are, for example, breastfeeding on demand, baby wearing, and co-sleeping. When a primary caregiver is open to forget the own and the social agenda of child rearing and chooses to individualize and adapt the interactions to the child's physical and emotional needs, this sets the foundation for a secure attachment pattern and later emotional health. There's no bigger act of love. Later on, as the child grows older, many parents of securely attached children notice their need to carry on with a personalized education. Parents notice that the children are still in the need of a loving, relaxed surrounding and are better off when provided with a personal, individual, real-life experience of education. And that's when usually homeschooling starts. There are many, many different ways to homeschool, but usually they all have in common the effort to keep the child's natural rhythm, to keep its curiosity and trust, so they can peacefully learn and grow from within at their own pace, instead of spending their important childhood years separated from their primary caregivers under constant pressure to perform academically, spending their energy creating coping mechanisms to survive, often harsh competition-based, cognitive focus all day long school settings. With my own kids, unschooling fitted the best. This means that our focus was always the freedom to explore, lots of time for free play in nature, the connection with primary caregivers and other people of all ages and different lifestyles, and the respect for each child's needs instead of blindly following any curriculum. So for us, what we did and what we do in the last 13 years, it was unschooling. So my kids grew up in a rural area of Portugal in a nice homeschooling community of some 10 or 15 families. At the age of 13, my oldest son decided to move to a formal public school where he is doing extraordinarily well. My now 10-year-old son and 5-year-old daughter still prefer to go on with homeschooling, both in very different ways as they have completely different needs and personalities. But this seems too perfect. Aren't there any cons, people may ask? Yes, of course, there are as many cons as pros. The biggest struggle is the difficulty to find like-minded people. Therefore, we need a lot of courage to walk the unknown path, and courage as well to learn more and more about ourselves while digging deep into research and observation of child rearing and mental health. So it's an unknown path for ourselves and for our children as well. And its focus on mental health and emotional connection, this often triggers our own old wounds. Most of us were reared the conventional way, and we don't have any role models to rely on, and on this new journey. For me, it has always been a big struggle to learn and research all by myself, mostly during the nights while the kids were sleeping, and then to apply all my findings on the education of my own 3 kids, each very distinct and different in age and personality, while I'm still doing the many household and organizational chores, and sometimes also while earning some money and speaking at events or helping other families who struggle with homeschooling. I think to do this all alone really well is more than humanly possible. And as the tribe doesn't exist, unschooled mothers like me often struggle with chronic burnouts. This is the biggest negative side, in my opinion, but the many positive sides of creating a nurturing, individualized, loving childhood without the academic pressures and strict routines of school settings are far more. And to me, it's absolutely incredible to watch the kids grow and be so full of life and joy and drive to explore and to connect. And school children show us how our limited views of human development is harmful, how these views are harmful, and how much human potential lies within each child that can be woken through connection, trust, and love. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agnes, and thank you for the truth in your words when you speak about the profound connection about loving and what love is. And it's not a word without meaning, but with so many things that we can bring to our lives. And thank you to share the difficulties, because I admire you as a mother struggling just like me with the idea of homeschooling and then school and then homeschooling and things like that. So I think it's very important for us all to be truthful in what is about our lives and about the possibilities of having different choices. It's in what I believe. So thank you, Agnes. Thank you so much. So, and I will go now for present Zsófi Seres. I hope I'm saying this okay. Studied Christian psychology in Germany After some years of counseling, she and her husband moved to Hungary and have been serving as missionaries. They have been homeschooling there for children. Please, Sophie, let us know more about yourself and what about you have to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sílvia, and thank you for having me here. It's very encouraging to hear your stories. It's very refreshing to be in a group where people love and support homeschooling and even fight for it. It doesn't happen often, I think, in our lives, at least in mine. So I'm thankful to be here. I would like to give you an update what's happening with homeschooling in Hungary. And I don't know how many of you have been attending a previous seminar where Emma shared or Emmy shared about the new laws that are in Hungary affected homeschoolers. But I will give a brief overview about that too and just share with you how it affects our country. And I'm thankful that we can learn from each other, and even examples as from Peter and other people have been encouraging for me, and just thankful that we are not alone in it, in homeschooling. And so in Hungary, they just passed a law last year that makes homeschooling very difficult. It has been possible to homeschool so far, and people have used it. Last year, there were about 10,000 children in the country of 10 million, and about 800,000, I think, students in the school system. There have been about 10,000 children who have been either homeschooled or in alternative school settings that kind of work like homeschooling, but more in a co-op setting under the umbrella of a school. And after the law changed last year, it went down to half. So there are only about 5,000 children who are either homeschooled or in alternative settings. The law pretty much makes it only possible to homeschool children who are either in sport, are physically handicapped, or are living in a different country. So there's not a lot of freedom. And it has, as I shared with you, impacted the homeschooling community in such a way that many of my friends, and even from our co-op, many decided to put their kids into school because they didn't get the permission from the government to continue homeschooling. Alternative schools, there were a lot of schools that opened up in the last 5-10 years because many parents were not satisfied with the public school system here in Hungary. Teachers are underpaid, the curriculum is outdated, the pedagogical method as well. So there were these smaller groups popping up where children could learn in smaller groups with individualized curriculum and so on. And many of those had to close just this year. The missionary community has been also impacted because until last year, a missionary could homeschool, but this year the Hungarian government requires even American missionaries to put their kids into public schools. There we have heard of children that it affects gifted children, as parents are much more reluctant to take out gifted children from school. Sometimes it's hard to prove that they're gifted as the government would require it. And so it impacts, these new laws impact gifted children and also kids with special needs, because these smaller co-op settings were much better for these students who have any kind of special needs, educational needs. So I don't have a lot of good just hopeful information from Hungary. This is how the laws changed here in our country just recently. But we are hopeful that things can change again, even as governments change. And our hope and prayer is that we would find allies in the government who would understand homeschooling and would be able to create different laws, and that even our hopes would be that I heard you say like in some countries the testing has been difficult. Here in Hungary, it's been extremely difficult for homeschooling families to do the testing. So I have the blessing of teaching my children bilingually because my husband is American, so we use Hungarian and English books and resources and everything. But if you are only have to rely on Hungarian school books or whatever in order to pass the test is just very difficult. And for a lot of families, it's been a real struggle. So our hope is that in Hungary, there will be a greater freedom to educate our children again in a way how parents choose. And then we would also love for the exams to be more homeschooling friendly, that there would be a system developed that would make that possible. So we just invite you to pray for us, for those of you who pray, because we would love to have more freedom, greater allies in the government, and also for the missionary communities, greater freedom again to serve here in Hungary and have the freedom to educate their children at home. So I hope this gives you a little insight into what's going on in Hungary. And hopefully next time we will have better news in such settings. Back to you, Sílvia.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. I have no doubts that sometimes in our life we will be having a great party to celebrate the freedom that all countries will get, because I do feel the same that you feel in Hungary, that okay, it's legal, but the legality for homeschoolers have to be in the context of what homeschool families do and not on the contrary. So the legal aspects have to serve the people on the countries. It's not the people that have to adjust for the laws, because we are not fighting against no one. We are not doing anything harm. So, and you touched the point that it is the importance to show to politicians what we are really doing, but not only to show, but to make them understand, because sometimes I feel that we don't speak the same language. So it is a very big path to go. And let me just say for everyone that have some interest in this particular subject, that I will jump for another session at 6 p.m. Lisbon time, that we will talk about this kind of things. So I hope people can buy. So thank you, Sophie. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here together and to listen to so many things from so many countries in Europe. And so let us hear now Monica O'Connor, that I will present now. Monica was born in Australia in 1967, lived in Ireland since 1974, left college to be a full-time mother, aged 19, home educating since 1986, 6 children aged 12 to 33, volunteer phone support for home education, home birth and breastfeeding, host camping for home educators, foster carer for 10 years. So it's so nice to meet you, Monica, and I'm very excited to listen to your experience, because I believe you have so many things to tell us, and I'm delighted to learn a lot with you. Okay, so go ahead.
Thanks very much, Sílvia. Can everyone hear me? So I have 6 children. So my eldest is 33, and I was very blessed to meet a family who were home educating before he was a year old. And this family were actually English and South African, but living in Ireland. And they explained to me that the Irish Constitution, Bunreacht na hÉireann, specifically says that parents are primary educators of their children. And I had been in the school system from a small girl, and I had never heard this, that this actual, not just right, but I would say our duty and our privilege as parents is to provide home education for our children. So I thought at first that I would need to be able to teach. This was the main thing that I learned in 33 years, is that my children are the active people in the process. And if there is one word that sums up education for me, I think it is relationship. And I think it's very important to remind ourselves that anything we are doing in our lives, people do not care how much we know until they know how much we care. And I think that has gone across anything I have tried to do in my life, whether it is answering a phone call from a mother with a new baby who is anxious because something is going wrong with her breastfeeding experience, or she wants a birth outside the hospital system. So people want to know that you care about them. And I think then this translates for our children. Obviously, we are the people most in tune with their interests. And I am much more, my children know things that I don't know. My children teach me all the time. So of the 6 children we have, the eldest now lives in America. He is in Montana. He has worked in Colorado and in Hawaii. He's working on construction at the moment. He has worked in golf clubs. He did a lot of work in hotel work. And then our next son is 26 and he teaches guitar. He has recorded some music and he works in a coffee shop when they are open, which open, shut, the way things are at the moment. And our third boy was at home without a curriculum really until he was 16. He did a university access course then and went to college to do a degree in music. So he has a 4-year degree and piano is his main instrument. He records music and he accompanies choirs when choirs are allowed to sing, and he teaches music, but he also plays 9 other instruments. I think he's learning saxophone at the moment, but piano is his main one. And the fourth boy is 20. He is halfway through a 4-year course in university. He does trombone as his first instrument, but also piano. And this was one of the children, I suppose, who taught me so much about, you know, putting my own ideas about learning to one side, because he was, I know he was 11, 12, doing a maths book, a sums book, and he just came to me one day and said, I am not doing this anymore. This is an insult to my intelligence. He was not a difficult child in any way, but he just was very clear that his time to do Lego and to paint tiny figures and to play piano over and over again, these were the important things in his life. And I suppose I had read a bit more of Peter Gray's work, Paul Rothermel, other people John Holt, who I have taken a lot of inspiration from. And John Holt, you know, would say that any child who can spend an hour or 2 a day or more, if he or she wants, with an adult who likes the child and the child likes, and they will just be interested in the world and like to talk about things. So it's really an informal kind of way of passing on information. So we would be more unschooling and less curriculum in our home. And just over the last few months, I have always been very glad that there's so much research, but it's mainly from Britain and America in people who have been home educated and where they have ended up. And I love to look at the research, and obviously it's good to be able to quote that. But I was very interested to hear stories of other families, how families have carried out home education, and really what those young people have done. So in June, I started a YouTube channel just chatting to young people I knew or young people I was put in touch with So they are between the ages of 18 and 40 so far. I have 15 interviews done, and it's a YouTube channel just under my own name, Monica O'Connor. And it was just really a lot of people then who phone and say, I'm thinking about home educating, but how do I do it? I don't know. I was bad at this in school. I can't teach this. And I have over 160 subscribers now and nearly 6,000 views to the 15 videos, which just give reassurance for where children, where their path might lead, if we kind of just help them and listen to them about what their interests are. So I'm going to stop there, Sílvia, but it's so lovely to be with you all today and to echo, you know, the information and about relationship and about how, as I say again, people, including our own children, they do not care how much we know until they know how much we care. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will ask you to write that sentence in our chat, because it's a very inspiring sentence, and it was wonderful to hear examples of some kids to make these benefits of homeschooling very established in our own lives, and be able to share what some kids are doing in a professional level after they were homeschooled is very important in my perspective. So thank you, Monica, and I cannot go along without saying that I also have a young son, almost 20 years of age, that is a composer and music for classical orchestra. So maybe we get our kids getting along, doing things together. I don't know. Well, I'm just joking, but okay, let's go along for Sofia Gallis. Okay, Sofia Gallis is the one that I must blame for me being here. Let me make a joke with that, because she is the one that co-founded the association Movement for Freedom in Education. And she didn't stop advising me to go to Moscow in 2018, I think. And so, well, Sofia, thank you for that. But let me talk about Sofia and not about myself. Sofia is someone that looks at his life to ask, what can we change to make it better? She has an inherent desire to make a difference, setting out on a path of self-discovery at a young age. She dedicated herself to performing arts as an extension of her expression. This, combined with an interest in art, with an interest in and respect for the individual as the driver of any change, moved her to become active in different causes. Sofia, I will not read all entire bio, so I invite people to know you better in what you have written, and it's available on the site. But I want to say that you, again, that in 2011, you co-founded Movement for Freedom in Education, the Portuguese National Association for the Freedom of Education, to empower parents to make the best educational choices for their children. Since 2015, Sofia has worked with Clonlara School to make personalized education available for more and more families around the world. She is now the International Programming Director, working to make Clonlara a truly global learning community. So welcome, Sofia, and please let us know what you have to say.
Thank you, Sílvia. Can you hear me? Because I know that sometimes this doesn't work, so I will keep it this way. I'm pleased to be here. I'm really sorry that we cannot meet all in Philippines, but I was blessed to be able to attend this conference in Rio de Janeiro and in Moscow. So it was, I can tell you all that this is a very special moment every 2 years that we are able to engage with others that have the same beliefs, that same trust that this is a right of education that we have. So I'm happy that even if it's online, we are able to meet each other and to know about each other and learn and grow together. So from what Sílvia requested me, I'd like to share a little bit in these 6 minutes my own experience as a person and how I feel that my work currently can support many homeschoolers. So as a student myself, while I was growing, and later on as a teacher, that I also played that role, because we do play many roles in our life, I always felt the lack of freedom and the capacity to follow my interests. The institutions, the structure was not providing that to me. At the same time, I was fortunate and blessed with a family that supported me in that path. So even if the school, the governance, the structure did not supported me, my family was able to hear me, to pay some attention to what I was saying and what was my interest. So I had that possibility to, after school or before school, follow my passions and my interests and dedicate time for those things that really mattered to me at that time. That, of course, they might have changed while I was growing. But later on, I realized that that was the same thing that I would like to provide to my kids. So when I became a mother, and that was around the time, 1 year after we were creating the National Association, it was very clear for me that it would make not sense for me to go take care of others' kids, at school, taking care of the others' kids, because I wanted to spend time with my own kids. I wanted to provide my kids the time, the freedom, the choice, listen them and observe them in their daily life nearby me, about how would be this development. Later on, I've learned and I've read research and I met Inês and many others, but I was intuitively, maybe, as many homeschool parents are, just feeling that this was the right thing to do, just staying at home nearby my kids and learn with them, grow with them, and learn more about life through their eyes also. So because of this, I tried to do my best as any other homeschool, and Agnes was talking about the pros and cons. It's not always easier to be a homeschool mom, and it's very easy to feel confident as a homeschool when they are babies for some people. But as they grow, we feel that society is closing some doors, and the expectations and about where our kids should spend their time, it's changing, right? And around when they're 5, 6, depending on the country, unfortunately, in some countries, 3 or 4 years old, the school is the only option. And for me, that was not an option anymore, gladly. So I was trying to find ways to support them the best way. And for that, I needed a network. I need a community. We human beings, we need community, we need support, we need love, we need understanding, and we need others to understand us. And it's much easier if we are able to do these things in an environment with people that understand and speak the same language. So I've just learned now a new word from Peter, a new description of myself, that I'm a reformer and maybe not just a revolutionary, and probably all of you also. In this process, I find out that I wanted to provide more freedom to my kids, but also to others, because I was already working with the association, and all the calls and all the parents that were reaching us looking for possibilities to educate in a different way. In a different way doesn't need to be out of school, because there are schools doing an amazing work respecting the child and allowing the child to lead their own process. So during my research and making my network and creating my own small community of parents that were thinking the same way I was thinking, that was the right thing to do, I found out about Konlara School, which is, for those that you don't know, it's an American nonprofit organization with more than 50 years of experience supporting campus students, off-campus, and distance learners. And through this process, when I've heard about Konlara, I was like, okay, I was not satisfied at that moment with what the Portuguese government was providing me as a mom. It was not freedom enough. I still have these exams, I still need to provide this. And if my kid doesn't want to learn that specific subject at a certain age, Why do I need to force him? I'm not saying that and some parents make this question, but they need to learn, they need to know the basis. And I think we all believe that that's true. But I think that many homeschool families also learn on the way that that learning is going to happen when it needs to happen, when it's the right time. The same way that we adults right now, after we get rid of school, out of school, we've dedicated time to follow the passions and the interests that we were maybe wondering for many years and not having the time to dedicate. So at that time, we think, okay, how am I going to invest my time on? And as homeschoolers, we try and we want to provide our students to be able to follow and dedicate their time to the things they really like. So I was looking for more freedom and find ways to allow them and to support them learning and discovering through their passions and their curiosities. And through Kunlar, I've learned that that was possible. I found a school, because it is a school, and I found a team of people that were able to support me. Because when we think about homeschooling, all of us have fears and doubts and burnouts, but one of the things that we need to have is to trust that we can do it, to trust that we have the capacity to educate our children, even the society throughout the ages, make us believe in a different way that we don't have that capacity. That is inner, it's inside. We have that capacity and we should believe and trust in that, also to pay attention to that. And this is what we have been doing at Kumara for many years, and this is why I'm so excited about my mission at this time, supporting students in more than 60 countries at this moment. Because when Sílvia was asking, okay, how can I give a case study about Europe? We have families in many different places, but what we do find is that the needs of those families and their experience, it's very common. And I feel that I'm hearing that also in our presentations, that we need to trust the learning process of our students, that we need to feel reinforced that we have the capacity to educate our kids, if we have that will, of course. We need to have the confidence as parents to rebuild the concept about what is education for us, what is to be educated, because we grow up educated in a certain way, and we need to rethink about that, or deschooling this concept, to find out what is the concept and the way, the practice, the action that makes sense for these kids that I have in front of me, that are different from all the other kids. We are unique, each one of us. So even if I believe, and I believe that I'm one of those persons too, that we have the trust inside of us, we need support, we need a community, we need to know that sometimes to an assurance that what we are doing, it's going well. And you know that someone is telling you what you're doing is just fine. Do not change what you're doing. And in a society where homeschoolers are still minority, where many of us don't have a network or community of other parents and supporters, like Sophie was saying, it's really important to find people that believe in what we are doing, that trust in our process. And that's what our advisors at Kumara have been doing. So we not only provide support to families to encourage them and guide them and advise them on this process, at the same time that we are respecting your choices as a parent and not just tell you how to do. We will help you guide what does it mean to homeschool for you, and not what is written in another blog or another book, because sometimes we want to do this in a perfect way, and we read everything and we want to do, oh my God, I can't do all of that. So it's a learning process, and we don't need to feel that we are perfect on this role, as we are not perfect in any other role in our life, even if we try our best. So Clara will support those families that feel the need for that help. At the same time, we provide a framework for learning. We have a method called full circle learning that empowers the students to take charge on their own education, so they can choose the order in which they move through the process of learning. And this is applied to any ages from kindergarten to 12th grade. And also the way the family wants to regarding a homeschooler family or a more traditional homeschool approach. We do want to respect your choice. And for that, we need to know you. So this is like a partnership that we make with the families supporting your process. It's not just advisors providing you information. We need to have this connection and communication ongoing to learn more about you, to be able to provide you the best we can to your own journey. And also learn from you, because every single family that we have across Europe and other countries, it's a learning process for us because they are so different and so rich, having so much different experience, that we're always learning new ways and helping other parents to do the same. One thing that I don't know who mentioned before, Erika, Inês, or Rose, I'm sorry, but we're talking about the parent role, the mentor role. That is so important here. It doesn't matter if it's a teacher, if it's a parent, if it's a neighbor, but in the process of growing and learning, the mentor role is really important. And that also, I think someone was comparing the teachers to the parents at that point, at that presentation, that we as a parent, we don't need to feel that we need to be a teacher, that we need to have a certified degree to be able to educate our children, because information is available all over. We need to find ways to search and to provide the support for our students, but also encourage them to learn by themselves and to make the right questions at the right time. And how the best way for us to do this personalized learning is to provide a flexible curriculum where each student will be learning at their own time, at what makes sense for them based on their interests and needs. So we don't have a set curriculum that is the same for everyone. We will help the family building their own curriculum, what makes sense for them. And at the same time, throughout all these years, and especially in the past, and this year with COVID, it's growing really strong. We are building this global learning community, having more families and being able to connect them through pen pals and clubs, but also making a bridge between the families that might live nearby physically, but being distant, or families that are in countries where there are no other families. So making this bridge, because we need to support each other. I think it's very important that events like this that we are participating now are happening, so we can know each other, but also support each other in many different ways in our homeschooling journey. So I know my time is off. So this is just my small sharing that there are schools with no walls overlooking the world that can also support us. So, and Colmar is one of them. So thank you for listening.
Okay, Sofia, thank you for your presentation. And it is wonderful to see that there are more possibilities for families, and this diversity of possibilities doing homeschooling is so big that it's wonderful to know that despite, well, we are all together, but we can choose different things to achieve what we want to achieve with our kids. So it's nice to be here. Okay, so let me begin this moment. I think someone said that, I think it was Zsófi that said that, was feeling that we are, well, in my own words, we are understanding ourselves and we are taking care of ourselves in this session, and sometimes we are not so used to that. That touched me a lot, because I feel the same. Sometimes it's difficult to make other people understand what we are doing, why we are doing it, the benefits of doing it, and mostly that by choosing homeschool, we are not against others' choices, but this is our choice, and it's a wonderful choice, and we are seeing the benefits, and we are testimony so many things that we are conquered, and so many, well, Agnes and Peter's talk about love and all come more and more responsible about this way of getting together for our own kids, but also to the whole world, that I will love to invite you to make here, because we have some minutes, more minutes than I predicted. So what can we say to encourage homeschool families that are with lots of fear because of the pandemic? Inês and someone else talked about this kind of different motivations to do homeschooling. And I was in another session two days ago that we spoke about the same thing. We are feeling that maybe there are two different motivations, but let me just make here a parenthesis to say that, or maybe not, because, for example, I began to homeschool 8 or 9 years ago, and I was so afraid about the choice. And only 1 year after, I began to relax more and to be more comfortable with the choice, just because it's not a choice that's common, and it's, in my opinion, it's natural for us to have some indecisions or some fears on some, and I think it's so natural. So I will invite you all to give in a short sentence for us to get along to more discussion. What can we say? What is our best advice for those who are trying to go to homeschool just because they disagree about the way that school is dealing with the protection about the pandemic? So I don't know, I will say the name of you because by Zoom it's better. So I will not follow a particular sorry, but I will say the names of some of them. Maybe Peter, what could be your best advice for new homeschool families that are becoming to do it now in Europe? Let us focus in our reality in this continent.
I want to say, don't be afraid, keep walking. This is so important. You know, in Bulgaria, we don't have, yes.
Can you share the image with us? It's more.
Well,
okay.
I think I have the problem on the camera now, but.
Okay. Never mind. Continue, please. Sorry for interrupting.
Please don't worry, Sílvia. I want to say in Bulgaria, we don't have a law about homeschooling, you know, but every of us homeschooling community, we don't afraid about that fact. We just do what we think is right. And I say you, we don't have problem with anyone. You know why? Because our example in our community is so strong. So our authority here in Bulgaria respect us and work with us. Everything is okay for us. So this is my word for you. Don't be afraid. Teach your children at home and share this with everyone in your countries and everywhere in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Erika, do you want to say a sentence from Italy?
Yes, sure. I think it's a matter of sensitivity too. I think it's what's happening, all these changes. The families now are feeling differently about what's happening to their children because the protocol in schools has changed dramatically in the last 6 months. And I personally decided to homeschool after trying to send my kids to school. I'm actually a teacher as well. So I had a clear idea of what the dynamics were in many school situations, many schools. So I think it's also a matter of people coming to a realization that there is something different. There's a different possibility, looking closely to what their children are going through. There has been this halt, this general halt where people couldn't go to work, couldn't go out, couldn't do basically anything. And it led them to reflect and think and reconsider their choices. So my advice to those families who are approaching homeschooling because of the pandemic, I think it's first of all to know your legal rights, know what the bureaucracy is about, go there, go in that direction, knowing where you stand, because many times here in Italy, the institutions have no idea how to handle the paperwork and whatsoever. And the second advice is to make connections, because as we said many times today, the connections make the difference. Meet families, try to get involved, even though it might be online for some time now and not in person. We are building in Italy and relations with other countries as well, like today, bridges and opportunities to exchange ideas, to inform one another of the different paths according to the different ages and stages. So I think those are the two key aspects. I think it's know your rights and how to practice your rights, and then in the second moment, make connections, get in touch with those who have been homeschooling for a longer time.
Thank you, Erika. Inês, do you want to say a message for the new homeschoolers? We are not listening, Inês. Maybe I can pass to another person and it changed. Zsófi from Inês. Okay, Inês, go along. Okay.
Okay, I was about to say the same as Erika. Can you hear me now? Okay, I would say embrace not knowing, okay? Embrace that you need time to figure out things and that it's okay to be lost and find these connections and these readings. There are lots of, John Holt was also a mind-changing writer for me. And just, you will not go at the pace as the school system will go, even if you are in homeschooling. It takes time to adjust, to adapt, and to find out what's your pace. And you have to let that happen. There is no other way. Otherwise, it's not real change, and you're not gonna find it connected and with meaning. So embrace not knowing. That's my advice.
Thank you, Inês. I will ask the same for Sophie, okay?
Yes.
Sophie from Hungary.
Yes. My advice would be something that how I started homeschooling. I thought I can try it for a year and see how it works. And we tried it and loved it and have been doing it since then. And there's really not much to lose, like trying it out. And if it was a really bad year, you can go back to school, but yes, so just try it out. And my other advice would be do it holistically. I think the school concentrates on intellectual way too much, but we are people who have intellectual, spiritual, emotional, physical, and social sides. And so when you homeschool, pay attention to all these aspects and teach your children so they can grow intellectually, socially, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And then you will have a holistic homeschooling setting that can be really enjoyable. So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Sophie. Monica, what can you say?
Thank you. I would just say that if there was one tip I would say to people say, oh, I don't have a car, I can't drive to meet other home educators, or I live in the city, or I live in the countryside, or, people have all the problems in their head. And I have one question for someone who would phone me. I said, do you like to be with your children? And that to me is the bedrock. If you like being with your children, you will figure it all out. And I have done radio interviews where people say to me, oh, how can you teach your children when you have 6 children and they imagine so much cooking and so much laundry? And I said, the most important things my children will learn, remember I have 5 boys, is everyone has to be able to cook for themselves and do their own laundry. And if you make baking a cake or making dinner together, if that is all you do, I mean all, for a few weeks or months until you get into a habit and a flow of being together as a family, I think that is the bedrock. You will learn everything else. You will learn literacy and numeracy, geography. You will have conversations over a mixing bowl when you are cooking with your children. And eating together is probably the most important thing.
Erika, Sofia, Gallis.
Well, beside everything else that was already said, I would say that it's important to make this decision not based on fear, not because of what is out there, but because what you believe you are able to do to your family. Like Monica was saying, that you want to be with your kids, that you believe this is possible. Because if there's no inner will, it's going to be a mess. So I don't want to be not, giving a good positive message, but it's very important that people do not make this decision, do not take their kids out of school if they don't want to be with them all day, if they are not feeling ready for this. So because the basis of that comes from the wrong place, in my perspective. So it needs to come from a perspective of love, because you want to care of them, you want to protect them, and protect them means to embrace all the things that others said already.
Thank you, Sofia. Well, Agnes, I would love you to, I didn't present you as someone that is living in Portugal, but is not natural from Portugal. And I think it's a very good example also. So I invited you to answer the same question, but putting the idea of maybe how can we do it between countries in Europe.
In the last 13 years, I tried to make this connection, and I had contact with many families who chose to homeschool out of fear. And I actually want to say the same as Sofia Gallis said. These people who run away from some situation and out of fear choose to homeschool, sooner or later didn't go on well with it, because they were not really in the trust of the process. They wanted to flee from something, but they didn't really embrace the unknown, as Sofia Gallis said. What I did to help these people is I invited people in the last 13 years to live in my house with my family, and to help them just to trust and to focus on the connection instead of focus in on the academics, or focus on the fear that something bad can happen, or focus on the comparison between school children and on the fear to fall behind. I just invited people and said, look, it's how we live. You can live with us. Some people lived weeks, others days, others months with us. Trust and focus on the connection, on the human potential. The academics will follow. That's not the most important, in my opinion. So my advice is always this: wherever you are, and in Germany, it's very difficult at the moment, and they still don't allow homeschooling. Wherever you are, if you really are convinced that you want to be with your children, you want to have a positive family life and do things together, just do that instead of fearing loss or fearing illnesses. And if you do it with wholehearted, the rest will follow. So the rest will work. That's my experience.
Thank you, Agnes. Well, I left you for the hand, Rose, precisely because I would love for you to give you a word, a particular word, maybe for the countries where homeschooling is not allowed yet. It's not allowed yet. So, and then we have to close our session. But go ahead, Rose. What will be our message for new homeschool families?
First of all, I agree with Erika that connection is very, very important, because when I started to home educate my 3 children who are adults now, I was very afraid as well, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it could go. And I did not have the experience. And now when I talk to young parents, most of them went to school themselves. They don't know how it is to be home educated. And what the thing that helped me was to talk with parents that had already chosen this path, and who could tell me, yeah, you know, you're fine, that's okay, you know, give your child a little time, trust your child. And this was so relieving for me to experience that. What I tell families in Germany is, first, get all the information you need, get all the information that is out there, and there is a lot of information. And when you have all this, then it's really your intuition who should decide what to do. The second thing that I think is important is that there are strong allies out there. For example, in Europe, for example, the European Commission, they know already about the significance of lifelong learning, of informal learning, of non-formal learning. And for example, the program Youth in Action, they want to support organizations, for example, who try to find a way to recognize informal learning activities. So I would really give the advice, go out there, find your information with people, with organization, with everything, and then trust yourself and let your intuition decide what to do.
Okay, thank you, Rose. We are finishing this session. I will ask for Sofia and Inês to answer the 2 questions that we have in the Q&A box, okay? Because one of those is for Sofia and the other one is about Portugal. And so I want to thank you all, to the speakers, for having this moment with us. I want to particularly give a great thanks to Sofia, Monica, Inês, Zsófi, Agnes, Erika, Rose, and Peter, that is no longer with us. I have to jump to another session that I will invite you all to attend regarding to the roles of the civil society in this issue. So for me, it was a pleasure to be here with all of you. And in the name of the Global Home Education Exchange, I thank you once again, and please be connected and be in contact with us, and maybe we'll see in contact face-to-face in Manila next year, or as far as we can. So thank you all.